and gentlemen, welcome to For the Collection, brought to you by the WrestleGeddon podcast. I'm your host, Chris the Heat Matthews. In this edition, we're looking at gone and forgotten wrestling toys. The toy line we're taking a look at this week is Lucha Libre Masked Warriors, done by Playmates Toys. So it's 2011, and you're hunting for the newest Elite or Deluxe Impact figures when you see what looks to be a new set of wrestling figures on the pegs. And if you're like me, you picked up one and said, oh, this looks pretty awesome, but put it back and walked out with whatever other figure from WWE or TNA that you were looking for at the time. So at this point, Mattel's WWE and Jakks Pacific's TNA and UFC lines have been on the pegs for over a year, and Playmates Toys has entered the ring with Lucha Libre USA Masked Warriors. For those unfamiliar with Lucha Libre USA Masked Warriors, it was MTV's second attempt with a wrestling promotion, the first being Wrestling Society X. The promotion caught my attention as I was channel surfing and saw a familiar face in Shane Helms, one of my top 3 favorite wrestlers of all time. Helms drew me in, and then a few more faces came on the screen, and Marco Corleone, who of course I knew as Mark Jindrak, and others like Liz Mark Jr. and La Parka, and kept me watching until they switched to Hulu. The show was hosted by Rebecca Reyes, who is also known as Reby Sky. Masked Warriors would debut on July 16th, 2010 on MTV2 with 11 episodes. The final 9 episodes would be streamed on Hulu exclusively, with the last episode airing on July 11th, 2012. So during their 2-season run, Masked Warriors would team up with Playmates Toys to launch a tag team attack on the wrestling figure market. Playmates were mostly known for producing the wildly popular Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures, which defined a lot of our childhoods, including mine, and looked to achieve success in the WWE-dominated wrestling figure market.
Lucha Libre USA Masked Warriors. Killer moves and high-flying combat in the hexalateral ring.
Lucha Libre Masked Warriors.
Supernova. Awesome aerial assaults. It's the Liz Mark Bomb. Unstoppable. Malicious. Charlie Malice with a malicious intent. Tinny Avis Jr., the Mexican legend. Marco Corleone, the international all-star. Sadistico, master of mayhem. Viva Lucha Libre USA, masked figures and ring.
So let's take a look at Series 1, which featured former WWE and WCW talents such as Marco Corleone, as we stated earlier, also known as Mark Jindrak, and Liz Mark Jr. Also included in Series 1 were Lucha Libre standouts Charlie Malice, Tinablash Jr., Sadistico, and Supernova. Each figure came packed with an accessory like a chair, trash can lid, or a boombox. These figures would retail for $9.99 upon release. But now, on Aftermarket's third-party sellers, these figures average around $35 according to eBay's sold listings. Each figure boasted 30 points of articulation and a 6-inch scale. Mattel's Elite figures clock in at 26 points of articulation and a 6 to 7-inch scale depending on the character. Jakks' TNA Deluxe Impact figures that were on the shelves at the time featured 27 points of articulation and a 7-inch scale, and Jakks' UFC line would have 29 points of articulation and a 7-inch scale as well. Playmates would also go on to produce the hexalateral ring, a very basic 6-sided ring that retailed for about $19.99. The ring itself would sit about an inch off the ground and featured stretchable and adjustable ropes and the Masked Warriors logo in the center of it. As I search eBay, the ring seems to be the hardest piece to find. The couple that do show up for searches are listed for over $100. With this too, Playmates also produced a series of role-play masks, reproducing the masks of Tinablash Jr. and Supernova, and those would retail for $12.99. Although they're not as recognizable as, say, a Rey Mysterio mask, these are still pretty cool to grab the attention of younger fans who might not be familiar with them. 2 packs with a figure and a mask were also produced, featuring Tinablash Jr. and Supernova. They retail for $19.99. The major difference in the Tinablash and Supernova figures were the additions of their entrance gear, making them a bit more unique. The problem with these is the masks for both sets were the same as the basic mask set. The figures in the 2-packs were the same deco as the single release figures with the addition of their entrance gear. But honestly, why pay $12.99 for just the mask when you can buy the figure and the mask for $7 more at $19.99? Series 2 was planned and shown off at Toy Fair in Mexico, and that would have included Lucha legends such as Dr. Wagner and La Parka. But with the wealth of talent that Mask Warriors had under their banner during their short run, it's hard to think that we miss out on having more figures of Shane Helms and Carlito, who would eventually join the roster as well, and first-time figures for such talent as Rocky Romero, RJ Brewer, Mascarita Sagrada Jr., ODB, and Tigresa Caliente. But looking back at these figures and how cool the character designs are, honestly kicking myself in the butt for not picking these up while they were on store shelves. The Mask Warriors line was one of the first Lucha Libre inspired figure lines to hit the US market, but now we have some killer figures coming and that have been released from Mask Republic and Boss Fight Studios and Super 7's Legends of Lucha Libre reaction figures. It's a great time to be a fan of Lucha Libre and wrestling in general. But all this figure talk is making me a little itchy, and I got to hit eBay and scratch that figure itch. Mask Warriors and Playmates were looking to set a new standard for wrestling figures, but unfortunately, Playmates tapped out due to low sales and low ratings for the series. But then again, being on MTV2, it wasn't really going to help sell toys to kids. Thank you guys for checking this out. Brief little history on a very short-lived wrestling figure line from Playmates Toys, Lucha Libre Mask Warriors. It was a pretty fun show to watch. You can find their stuff on YouTube. It's getting a little harder to find full episodes, but there's definitely a whole bunch of clips out there. And like I said, you can find the figures on eBay, ranging anywhere from $35 to about $100, depending on the figure, the ring, stuff like that. So, yeah, thanks for checking us out. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast anywhere that you can find wrestling podcasts on. Just search Wrestling Gun Podcast, or just go ahead and hit the link tree in the bio, and that'll take you to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere that, whichever one you listen to us on. Make sure you also subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Like, share, comment, all that fun stuff. And thanks again for checking us out. And I'll catch you guys later.